Morning, Year 5 and 6 students. Mr. Hogan here again, and I wanted to give you a little bit more support as you continue to write your persuasive writing this week. Now, I've been getting some great submissions from students in my class, and I've had a chat to a few of the teachers about the writing that's coming in. And one thing that we are finding, or one thing that definitely I have noticed, is that I feel that some students maybe need to get a big picture idea of what we're doing here. A larger example of what a good finished product will look like, because I'm getting some great paragraphs coming in, some great language and some great research, but I'm not quite sure that the arguments and the reasons I'm getting are going to flow and create a big picture. So I want to explain what I mean by that, and I'm going to show you some examples. Now, the text we're writing, some people call it an exposition. In an exposition, you just take one side. If you're going to argue about school uniforms, you take the yes, school uniforms are great argument, and you just argue that one side. You don't consider both sides and weigh them up. You say, no, I'm going to convince you of one side of the argument. When you do both sides, we call that a discussion. But we're not doing a discussion where we consider and think, oh, this is good and that's good. We're just trying to convince on one side of the story or one side of the argument here. So I've got an overview of what an exposition looks like. And I want to go through this because this is basically what we'll be looking at as teachers as we mark your work. And this is what will look like your big picture overall. So remember that the aim is to convince the reader to agree with you or to take a course of action. Really, the best persuasive texts are the ones that actually get people to change their behavior or to do something, all right? We know that exposition texts are emotive, so they use emotions. They're biased. That word there, you've probably heard it a lot, but biased means you take one side. You're arguing for one reason, okay, for one argument. You're not trying to be fair. You're not trying to be balanced in this situation. You are actually choosing a side and you are arguing for that side. And they sound authoritative. Authoritative. An interesting and long word. And what it means is it sounds like you have authority, or it sounds like you know exactly what you're talking about as an expert. Okay, we respond to people who have an authoritative voice because they sound like they know what they're talking about and they are in charge, and we should respect their opinion. Okay, so I've linked up the structure here with your burger plan. So we had our burger plan with our introduction, our body, which is our filling in our burger, and our conclusion, the bottom part of the bun. And these are the things we should include in each section. So as you write this week, and editing will be happening on Thursday and Friday, okay, you're going to really make sure you've got these things. We're going to do our conclusion next week, so don't stress about that for now. But you really want to edit your three appeal paragraphs that you've written, and I would also link them in with your introduction. So go in there and get your introduction back, put them all in the one document, and have a look at how it flows. Your introduction obviously wants to state what your opinion is. It needs to be clear that what your topic is and what side you're on, okay? Preview your important arguments and engage the attention. So that's your hook. Now, where it says preview important arguments, you really want to give a bit of a taste to the people who are reading this, to your audience, of what's coming up and what your reasons are. So if you're going to talk about uniform, you would do a really interesting hook and engage, make sure you're clear, and then you would maybe do a preview. So I think uniforms are horrible because they reduce our individuality as students. They can look really bad and they can be uncomfortable. So you would have your three, and that's called a preview. You just put them in a list like that. That's fine. Then we've got our body. Now, our body is a series of paragraphs. That's the 3 peels we're doing. You might end up writing more than 3 paragraphs. That's okay. But what we're asking for you for your minimum is 3 paragraphs. Each paragraph has a new idea with reasons and examples. Point, example, evidence, and link. That's our peel. It uses our persuasive language, reported or quoted speech, and a cohesive link. So our reported or quoted speech, we'll look at some examples of that, And our cohesive language is linking ideas. That's the L in our peel. So you might say, uniforms aren't just uncomfortable, they can look really bad too. And then you would go to your next paragraph. Okay, and our conclusion, we'll go on with that next week, but it's about restating a position, summing it all up, getting them to do something, and you don't give any new information in that. So this is a satisfactory, what we would call sound, okay, year 6 level persuasive or exposition. It's this is what we are looking at for students in year 6. Now, if you're in year 5 listening to this, it is the beginning of year 5. Well, we're almost halfway through year 5 now. If you do this, this is probably, I'd say someone in year 5 writing something like this would be maybe above satisfactory, okay? The teachers get together and we talk about that, and we think about which grade we might give. And we will be marking these together, and we'll be getting you to submit them, and we'll be, the teachers will be looking at how we can use these to support our reporting this semester. So let's have a look at this. I'm going to read this one out, and I want you to listen along with me and pay attention. I'm going to use the cursor. More money, less toys and games. Too much money is spent on toys and games. It's true. Nearly every week, children come home complaining that their friends and the whole school have a new toy game that they want one too. When a child buys a game, who will they play it with? It won't help to buy a computer game, as they won't have enough time for friends. What happened to sports and fitness? Kids buy brand new toys and then they try to figure out the rules of the game, and at the end they don't know how to play. Today's children need time with people and sport, not time with plastic toys and computer games. Now the annotation here, it says that it has the appropriate structure and it elaborates in the paragraphs. Let's have a look. Firstly, when children come home to their parents, they complain that everyone has a new game or toy and that they want one too. The poor parents don't know how to say no, and they end up spending money for something that is not important. The more the parents do this, the more it will affect the young one's attitude, and they will expect everything they ask for. Secondly, the children become antisocial. All they care about is themselves and computer games. They're too busy playing on computer games that they don't have enough time for friends, and that could create a problem between their friendships. No one wants that. Finally, when a child buys a board game, who will they play with? They might not have brothers or sisters. Well, they might, but they're too busy to play. So they store the board and don't use it all. And don't use it. It's a waste of money and time. In conclusion, parents must be careful about what to buy and what not to buy. Otherwise, kids will become spoiled, they will become antisocial, and you'll end up not using the particular game or toy. That's why you must spend your money on your needs. Okay, now that is a satisfactory persuasive text, and I have to say that this was something that was written under NAPLAN style conditions. So you would imagine that this student, and it's a student's piece of work, there are some errors in there and it's not perfect. This student was given this topic in a NAPLAN test. They sat down and they did their planning, and then they wrote this in 45 minutes. So that's satisfactory for that situation. I'm just thinking now, you know what? We're spending a lot of time editing and researching. Perhaps we could do better, considering we're not just doing it in 45 minutes. We're spending hours getting this right. So we might have to have a think about what maybe this, and again, this is a high version or above satisfactory. And again, this is a NAPLAN style assessment. So this is someone who sat down and done it in 45 minutes, 50 minutes maybe. You need to think, well, could I do better than this? Because I'm sitting at home researching and I'm getting information from the internet. I'm getting quotes. So let's have a read of this one, and then I'll wrap up the video at the end with some tips. So too much money is spent on toys and games. It's the same topic. How would you like to have so many toys that you can't afford to pay the bills to live? Many toys are expensive and are a financial burden on families. Also, the variety of toys is large and unnecessary, so that it creates waste. A lot of the modern electronic toys make children antisocial and unhealthy. That is why too many toys and games will definitely mean less food on the table. I'm sure some of you have seen the persuasive devices with the rhetorical questions, the high modality, and the reasons there. And this is the preview where they've listed the 3 sort of main reasons. Then it goes into our 3 paragraphs. To begin, having too many toys and games is a major financial burden. For example, the toys are really expensive, and almost all of the wanted toys are fancy and not just basic. Also, toys which are a part of a series make parents feel like they must get the next one in the series. The effects of this are that there are other bills to be paid, and they don't get paid. Then the family goes into an economic meltdown. Expensive toys don't pay the bills to keep the house warm and put food on the table every night. Okay, I'm not going to read the rest of that because I think that the video will go for too long, but you can see how this is a little bit more effective. They've used more persuasive devices, they've used technical language, but they are peeling their paragraphs. They're making their point, they're doing the explanation and examples, and they're linking it back, either linking it to the next one or they're linking it back to the main reason. This next one is what would be below satisfactory for a year 6 student, and this was a NAPLAN style. So you can see, I'm not going to read the whole thing. It's not really long enough. They haven't really peeled their paragraphs. There's only 3 sentences. I don't think how you could peel a paragraph in 3 sentences. There's not a preview in there. Look, the punctuation's pretty good. They've got full stops, capital letters, and the spelling's great, but that's not good enough, okay? Especially for you guys, considering that we have had a couple of weeks to learn about the devices. We've had a week to do the introduction. Now we've got time. We've done our planning and we're peeling as well. We have high expectations for you. We expect these persuasive texts, your expositions, to be very good. So here's my last tips. Think of the big picture as you write. Remember, you're trying to persuade, and at the end, you're trying to convince someone or you're trying to get them to do something. Keep that in mind as you write, and keep your main topic in your mind. If you're arguing for uniforms, make sure you reinforce that. Link your reasons back to your big idea, okay? Get your writing to flow so that it goes from one paragraph to the next. And make sure that you continue to edit, edit, edit. Reread it. If you have to cut it and start again, that's what you have to do sometimes. I hope that helps you understand exactly what we're aiming for, and I'm looking forward to seeing everyone back at school very soon. I hope that helps, and I'll stop that there. See you later, boys and girls.